But I do kind of want to talk about soundboxing. So I'm not gonna do a lot. I'm not gonna say a lot about soundboxing. Soundboxing, just so you know, I don't know if anybody knows me or whatever. Soundboxing is a game that I created a decade ago, about a decade ago, and it was I talked about the story a little bit earlier about how I originally got into virtual reality because I wanted to create apps. I wanted to create like a Reddit app that would work in VR. And I really thought like it was this next medium for apps. But I ended up having to pivot to games, and the game that I created was Soundboxing, and it did pretty well. Like it funded my lifestyle for years, and I was an indie game developer working on this Soundboxing game. But over time, like I got to the point where I was like, I got into a real rut with it as an indie developer, where you're kind of a solo developer, and with when the VR industry was kind of like floundering, and I personally was like looking for, I guess, like technical challenges, and was trying to find ways of technically challenging myself and learning and all of that. And I got into this rut where I created like my own game engine basically for soundboxing. And I basically like spent a year and a half building out this whole custom game engine in WASM. And I thought it was going to be this whole big thing where like the gamers would come in and like build different types of game. Like I was trying to turn soundboxing into like a music game engine that all future like Beat Saber would be created in the soundboxing engine and all of that. But I ran out of money. Nobody was buying it by that point. I ran out of money, and I was also so burned out by the time I got to the end. And I realized that like no one was going to build a game in my engine. My engine didn't even have an editor. Like it was a pure code-based engine, and it was really cool, but it wasn't that good or useful. And I needed money, so I ended up having to take a job. And soundboxing just became this thing that kind of went on the back burner. And as VR has faded, it really just became something that like I support, and I continue to keep it updated. But what happened was last week when I had this or 2 weeks ago when I had that catastrophic server outage, and I had to port from I had to like restore from a backup of soundboxing. Thankfully I had put in like a periodic database backup that I had never tried or not for a long time. So I was very, 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 very lucky that when I had that catastrophic failure, I was able to restore from like actually a 1 day old backup. And since there's not many people using the service anymore, that 1 day old backup was pretty good. But I had a lot of people reaching out to me from the community saying like, hey, what's up with the game? Why isn't it working? So and they were like because I jumped back in the Discord to answer those people and talk to those people, it became something where I was updating them saying like, oh, I'm working on the backup, I'm working on the restore. I didn't know anyone was still playing it really. Like it was kind of cool to see. And then while I was in there, they were like, hey, can you check out some of these challenges that aren't quite working properly? And like, could you check this out, that out? And it got me started to thinking about the game a little bit. And I realized if you look at it says September 29th, 2016, and we're in August of 2026. So we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of when I launched this thing. And at the same time, I was realizing that like with agents, I can just forget about the whole new engine. I can forget about the old game. And also the other thing is like this game, it's built in an old Unity version that I don't even have access to anymore. Like they don't sell you the version of Unity that I need to continue working on this. So like if I was to update this, I would need to either find a way to get the old version and either upconvert it to like a newer version or start from my crazy engine and start there and like try and get it out the door. But I was realizing that like with agents, I don't need to do any of that. I can just point the agent at the old version of the software and say, let's rebuild this today with modern technology. And like I can use an agent to basically bring this up to speed and create like a 10-year anniversary edition of Soundboxing. So that's something that I started working on actually. Like that's what I was talking about the story graph thing where I was working on that project, but this has started to become my little fun side project, which is like, let's work on a 10-year anniversary of Soundboxing. And what can we do? Well, how far can we get? What can we build? And I'm not ready to share too much yet. I basically found the known good version that's running. I found the source code, and like it's so weird. It's so frustrating. It's like it's such a mess because, like I say, I worked on Soundboxing 2.0 back in the day. This 2.0 version, and that means that there's like 200 commits on the main branch of Soundboxing beyond the released version. The released version that like people play right now. When people download Soundboxing and they play it, it's like 200 something commits behind. So I had to go find like the version that's actually released. And then I had to create like a prompt that said, don't try to go forward beyond this. Stay at this, like I created a tag. And I said, stay at this tag. And then I had to also do the same thing for all the different components of the game because there's so much development that I just want to like forget about. I got too pie in the sky, too crazy, and created this whole WASM game engine. So I created this workflow that it's going to help me show later. But it's this Fable workflow where I said, okay, I checked out the directories and I found the right tags for like what the released version was, and I said we're just going to do a full and complete like Bible description of what the Unity game looks like, what the website looks like, what does the API contain, and how does it work. Basically, like give enough detail so that that if this set of documents were given to a new team without access to the source code, that they could successfully create a Soundboxing 10-year anniversary edition without looking at the source code. And so I wanted to like basically just have it really, really explore every part of the code base and create basically like a Bible of Soundboxing. And the way that it worked was like, if you'll see when I sort of load this doc thing up, if it creates one. But the way that it worked was like it would pick an area, it would generate first like the first version of it, and then it used an adversarial review to find flaws in that, and then it took the adversarial review, sent it back, and improved the documentation, and then only after a couple of rounds of that would it like sort of save it out and say it's finished. And it using Fable for most of this meant that it like actually got really quite good, and it did quite a good job of extracting all the information that was necessary into a series of 5 or so markdown documents. And like I spent a lot of time and a lot of my Fable credits to do this, because I think that like having it in a written form, having it like distilling as much knowledge as possible into like a prose type of a form, I thought was just really important. And so like what that resulted in is like an API doc where it's a full, this is a almost 10,000 line document that describes the full API and exactly how that API works and all of its quirks and the good parts and the bad parts and all that other stuff. Also, the Unity game. The Unity game got a 10,000 line document that describes every single part, including like there's mermaid diagram here. And so that's happening. Looks like we're about to share. This is kind of cool. From legacy code to trusted blueprint. 4 systems, 1 shared truth. Each codebase is split along concrete boundaries called seams. A seam is narrow enough for one agent to hold in its head, but complete enough to answer a real rebuild question. So these were the 4 that I was talking about. Okay, this was the workflow. One specialist reads the real source for each scene. And so it would do research. And then there was another worker that would adversarially verify each claim that was made in this research. Then, like I said, it gets sent back to a revisor. So I don't remember if it was the original research agent or a revisor agent, separate one. But the idea was that like all the things that the verifier found to be incorrect or half truths or whatever, insufficiently specified, that would all be sent to the revisor to fix. Then it would be sent to an outliner to turn all the research into 4 to 7 sections. And then it basically like took all those different areas of research and all those different things and turned it into one draft. So there was the scatter part. This is all kind of like scattered. There's a bunch of them doing this, a bunch of them doing this, a bunch of them doing this. And this is sort of like the gather part right here, where it's reducing down into one document. The concept of one document. And then it splits that out again to say, okay, now that we've got our outline for what we want our document to be, let's fan it back out to each one of those things to fill in their sections. And then we merge it here, where we're saying, okay, now we've got our outline, we've had each individual one fill out its section. Now let's merge it together and make sure that it's all good. So the new engine that I'm building to rebuild Soundboxing. So this is like, it's been really fun for me because I just want to say that like, so Soundboxing was in the beginning, it was a lot of fun and it was successful. So anytime something is successful, it's fun. And it was like a big part of my life. But I did get into a rut with it. And I got into this like it was hard for me to think about the game. In fact, like, there was one time when I was thinking about like a particularly tough problem I felt. There was one time I was stuck for months on a technical thing around the new game engine. And it just like took me so long to figure it out. And like 5 years later, I was mentioning something about that problem and I started crying. I found myself crying thinking about it just because it was so stressful and such a problem. I ended up solving that problem and got it working, but like there was a period of time when I felt so alone and so myself against the world, and I couldn't figure out how to do stuff and nobody would help, and the industry seemed like it was dying and I was running out of money, and it was like a hard time at parts. So then I guess like that moment where I found myself kind of like emotional over thinking about a technical hurdle that I overcame, it reminded me that like there's still just a lot of emotions wrapped up in this game. Now it's like probably 5 years later after that, and I don't have as much like emotional sort of feelings about the game anymore, except for some of the good stuff from the beginning. Except that like now there's all these agents, and like the agents are kind of giving me this second life to this. It's giving me this like kind of revival of I can do this. It's not going to be even hard this time, like this is fun now, and it's a side project, and there's no pressure on it, and it's a 10-year anniversary, and if I get anything out at all, it'll be fun. And like it's just been this really fun project for me to revisit Soundboxing. And so that's where my tokens have been going this week, is this like Soundboxing 10-year anniversary project. So I'm not going to talk all about all the other stuff, but I am going to give a quick like teaser of some of the stuff that I've been working on, and it's turning out really fun and great. And this has been like very little work. It's been like a week of work. And it's all started because like people are still playing it, and they were pinging me and they were asking me to fix these things. And like now it's possible. So if you watch my streams, you know that there's going to be a 10-year anniversary potentially. I'm not promising, but like if I can get it done in the next month, basically. So what did I say? It was September 29th. It's August 22nd. I have basically 1 month and a week to see if I can get something working. And here we go. So here's like, I've got a version. This is in the browser. This is like a WebXR version. And I've been porting over, like, I've been trying to port the environments over a little bit. but like I can't use the original assets for that particular thing. So I've been putting various agents in loops saying like, try and build something like a lava planet, try and build something like a sky planet or a depth planet or a high planet. And then like, oh, interesting that Amxos has has a world now. That's not supposed to have a mesh, but like all of these these are kind of like these different like skyboxes that I used to have. Oh wow, some of them actually have geometry. I got to get rid of that geometry. That's a bug actually. But let's go to lava. I like the lava planet right now. And then I was able to load in all the original old score or the old beat maps. So there's like 30,000 beat maps that are going to work in this game. But and so first of all, this is like a demo. This is a demo that doesn't have any music, so there's no rights issues or anything like that. I can just show it here. But here I'll just do a real quick thing. This is an in-browser version. It's like actually this does run in VR already. It runs in XR, WebXR. But you can see I'm like recreating some of the reactions that we used to have. This now, the old WebVR version of this game didn't have any of this cool stuff. So it's been really cool to see like this is like a WebXR version that is turning out pretty fun. And like even just with my mouse, like I was thinking about with my mouse or with like I could use like a thumb. If I did like a touch version of this, you could use your thumbs to tab. It might be fun. But so whatever. So there's that. And then like I said, all the old games come in. Like I need to somehow find a way to mute this, so I won't play this. I'll mute this. But you can see, first of all, the replays came in too. Like you see where the original replays, that's all in there. But then, so this is a challenge that a user created in the game, and I'm able to load it into my new system that I created. This is a WebVR based thing, but it's loading like, and also I created a much more efficient format for all of this stuff. Like there's terabytes of replays and challenges in my old system that are it's costing me actually a lot. And I found a way to like massively reduce the size of all this stuff so that I can store it for a lot longer and not have to really think about it or worry about it as much. And you kind of create more backups, and it just makes it all better. But what's really cool, I'm gonna and by the way, look, it's got the YouTube integrated already. It's working. It's pretty fun. It's kind of neat. But what I will do here, what really has me excited is, so YouTube was always like the Achilles heel of this thing. Like if I was always worried about the YouTube aspect, and it was also always the hardest part was getting YouTube integration working, making sure it's synced up. It never did. It never does. It, like actively, the browsers won't give you access to accurate enough information to really sync it up properly. So I had to create all these in-game mechanisms where you could kind of like move yourself and align yourself to what and I just had to do so much stuff. And I was always worried that like there's potential that they wouldn't like what I was doing and they could find ways to make it hard for me or shut me down. Even though this is just an iframe, it's just a web browser, like I'm putting in all the normal ads, like you're seeing all the normal ads. It was always the way that the game worked. But it was just always this thing that made me nervous. But what's happened also in the intervening time is something else, which is generative AI. So that there's a theoretical possibility, and I'm going to show you something. Oh, crap. Yeah, I'm going to show you something now where these two songs I generated locally on my local machine. I generated the song. This is an asset that like so I could make part of the game that the start of the challenge is you generating the song that you're going to play against, so that there's no reliance on any third parties and there's no rights issues and no content issues. That part of the act of creating the challenge, like it's actually kind of this new thing where like creating the challenge is creating the song. The whole thing is your inventive creation yourself. And so this is just an experiment where I downloaded an off-the-shelf MIT licensed music generation model called Ace Step. And I'll show you just two examples of it real quick. Not great, but like there's some I can like create a challenge to this. It's fun enough. And it generated a beat map. This is like an automatically generated beat map, also using like a generative beat map thing. And here's like a hip hop one.
Pressure on my shoulders, I don't fold like
so I don't know. I was looking at this and I was thinking, oh my god, it's easy to revive. It's like I can have there's a path to sovereignty and not relying on a commercial entity for any of the music aspects of it, to getting that YouTube player out of there eventually, theoretically. And then I started thinking that, holy crap, I actually can like. There's one thing would be to like generate the song all up front and then create the challenge to it. And that's fun. But imagine if like I can take the data that I have for all the movements that people have done and the like descriptions of the songs that they were creating. And I could create a new type of an instrument where you start with a prompt and then you start boxing and the music is created based on your actions. Like it's generating the music 200 milliseconds ahead of you based on what you're doing. So if you start to get really excited, it's creating like based on your prompt, and you start to get excited, it amps up the energy levels. Or if you start to like go to a relaxed phase or a second, it fades out and goes to something else. Like I'm realizing that soundboxing could be an instrument, actually, its own instrument. But yeah, so this idea of first creating like a document-based Bible of the old code, then building a new game based on the Bible, and then going beyond and taking it to the next level and saying, what if we create new types of instruments where just by doing beatboxing, you're inventing music that's also going to be used for the creation of the song? Like, I think that there's so much cool opportunity here, and it's so low. It's like so low touch for me to do it. It's easy for me. I can just kind of hit, I can give it a goal mode and kind of leave it for a day, come back to it, give it my judgments, give it my feedback, kind of go back, try it again, give it like visual fidelity goals, give it performance goals, make sure that and then by the way, it's doing stuff that I never could do with my own game development skills. It's doing all kinds of stuff in the shader that I would have done as meshes or as other things. But because it's being done in the shader, it's like super portable across all these different platforms. And so, yeah, this is like one of these things where it's like, this would never have happened without agents. Without agents, soundboxing is kind of just going to fade into the distance. But with agents, I can potentially revive the game. And I don't know, like what I'm thinking is that I will launch it first as in a preview mode. I'll launch it to like as just a WebVR game, because if you go to soundboxing.co, there's kind of like a built-in WebVR game that like, let's just replace this first of all. Like you can see, this is the WebVR version as it exists today. We can be so much better. We can do so much better than this. So this is the WebVR version as it exists today. Like this could be just wholesale swapped out for the new version, for the new thing. And then it would be cool if I could launch this and deploy it to all the people who have the soundboxing game, because they deserve a game that stays up to date and gets better over time. And now that we have agents, I can kind of like, as a side project, commit to doing that. So that's the hope. I've been having so much fun with this. It's gone from soundboxing has been gone from something that I kind of didn't want to think about because it ended in this like weird rut to this new thing that I'm having a lot of fun with, revisiting, thinking about again. And like, it's not a it's not a big thing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can just be a fun thing for me to do, a little side project that also helps me keep, like, also this is pushing all the limits. Oh well. Bokeh. Yeah, this is what I was looking for. This is what it was doing when I was telling it to like match closer to the original. It was like trying to find out what it was doing wrong, what it was doing right. Look at this. Like it I didn't ask. This was for it. This was for itself. And it was trying different versions of it. It created a table like these loops where it's analyzing itself and improving it is just so cool. It's a new world. It's a new world. I'm excited. This is fun. Soundboxing can come back and not be like a big thing. And I'm learning about like sort of like modern game development and XR. There's XR stuff that is new in the WebXR spec that I didn't know about. There's all these kinds of shader tricks that I've noticed it using that I never knew about. Like it's all just fun. This is fun. I'm having a good time. So no promises, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a Soundboxing 10-year anniversary edition out in 2026. So I said that I used this Ace step for those two songs. I was looking also at Minimax Music 3. That came out just days ago, and it seems to be a much better music generation model, but it's not very open source, and it also has no encoder, which makes things harder. It's also a little bigger. It's like a bigger model. This one, Ace Step, it seems to be the one that I'm going to play around with first because it's MIT licensed. It's like a really permissive license. This one makes you put a watermark on stuff if you use it. So I would either need to like, I was thinking like if I take it as like a base model and then do sufficient training on it to the point where it's basically a new model at that point, then I can probably say it's a transformative art, it's transformative work. But I don't even want to think about that stuff. This one's pretty good. I've got a bunch of like I've started to prepare data it's really tough because I don't have access to like all those songs that people are playing aren't. I can't just like go to YouTube and download the music and say like train on that. It's not the way it works. It's not the way it mechanically works. It's not the way the rights work. It's not the way any of that works. But I can do analysis on those songs and generate textual descriptions about what they are. And then I do have access to all of the motion data and then the score and then like the actual challenges. So based on all of those things between the textual descriptions, the existing model of Ace Step, the motion data and the challenge and score data, I can create a really cool. This is where this new model that I'm going to generate is like an instrument that's never been created before, and it's only possible to be created because I created this game 10 years ago and collected data ever since then of motion aligned to music. Nobody else has that I know of. And so I don't know. It's just like all of this stuff is so fun and cool, and I don't have to spend any time on it. I just press enter, and I come back next day and see what it did, and it's just like it's so much further along than the last time. And yeah, so this is fun. This is fun. But okay, so that's pretty much it.